Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Today's topic is on Liberty Reports for Sage 100 Contractor with presenter James Coyle from WWN Software. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. The webinar will be recorded, and we will email out a copy to everyone later today. I will now turn it over to you, James.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you to Accordant for hosting these fantastic webinars. It shows a lot of care and consideration for your customers. And thanks everyone for joining us. Monday morning isn't always the most optimal time to get people to join a webinar, but for you folks, I really appreciate it because we're going to show you some really fantastic technology here. I have a few slides to cover. That'll help frame what Liberty Reports is and in the context of your Sage 100 Contractor solution. So with no further ado, this will take about 40 minutes. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. It just depends on if you have questions or the extent of the examples I'm going to show you. But what I'm going to make it very clear is so that you understand what the technology is, why it was created, what the different types of licenses are, and how they can be used. So to leverage, the ability to assemble information in a useful way that you might not otherwise easily be able to with other tools for Sage 100 Contractor, and then of course be able to utilize that information in useful ways. Now I'm going to show you where you can see examples of all the reports that come with the technology, and I'm also going to be demonstrating some of those. And we're going to empower you not only with the follow-up with this information on Liberty Reports, the PowerPoint and other information, but also with the opportunity to try the software out. So we're going to cover all of these types of things that you're going to see right here. And so it starts here with what Liberty Reports is. So our software is Excel-based. So it's an Excel-based reporting creating tool and the ability to run. So what it is not is a more refined means to push information into Excel. That's not what this is. Something like QuickBooks, for example, if you have a report, it can push it into Excel, and it does a great job, but then it's static. That's it. If you want to see it in a different format, you have to manipulate it. If the information you want is not there, it can be very, very difficult to add it. If you lay the information out, go through a process of assembling information from different sources, you have to repeat that process each time you want new information. So that's the downside historically of Excel-based reporting when you push data in. And that time is money. It's, we're not going to go through a bunch of tedious processes over and over and over again. We're going to look for a better way to do something, and that's what you're going to see here today. Our technology is inherently SQL server-based. So that SQL stands for Structured Query Language, or SQL is what people often call it. And our software's always been that way. So even when we connected only to when there was just version 19 database that was not SQL Server, our technology still connected to it as if it was, because we wrapped the database, the version 19 database for technology, that is completely consistent with the version 20. So that means that if people use the Launchpad reports to create reports and they went from version 19 to 20, the reports still worked. So that's great. Now, if you are in version 19 and you haven't gone to 20, I think that most people probably have by now, but if you haven't, if custom reports are created, that's the only area where we want to make sure that they're done in a way that's compatible between version 19 and version 20. So we'll cover that. If you have any concerns about that, we can address that. Now, in addition to the advantages of this just being Excel-based, that you can design your own reports, but also use reports that are already designed. The other advantages are that working with information like this in Excel is inherently intuitive to most people. Most people have a general understanding of Excel and can navigate around. So this is ultimately what originally drove our development of this technology. Now, I'll tell you that we were already really successful with Excel-based reporting prior to creating Liberty Reports for Sage 100 Contractor. In the Sage 300 construction real estate world, which is formerly known as Timberline, we have over 2,500 companies, over 10,000 concurrent users using this technology. And that's not by accident. There's a reason for it. So even if you're only looking for certain reports that you can't otherwise get, some people will examine this technology and make the decision, wow, this is a better mousetrap. Maybe I want to use it more extensively. So it just depends. Different people have different desires, and there's something right for everyone. I will tell you that your knowledge of Excel will give you an edge in creating new reports using this technology. Our technology is Excel-based. You can see our formulas and queries and things working very consistently with Excel, and I'll be using Excel capability in showing visual elements. And I strongly encourage you to invest the time, if you should use the designer, to attach visual elements to your information, because a visual element is like a graph or a chart. Well, if they're attached to information that's refreshed, they refresh. So you don't have to keep building them, but they're visual and it can help make the data very intuitive. So anyway, the result here is you're going to get very high quality interactive reports. And this version, even though we have a product called Liberty Reports SQL Server, that's not the one that you would get to use with Sage 100 Contractor. That's not what I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to demonstrate Liberty Reports specifically for Sage 100 Contractor, and there are reasons that will become apparent as I show you the software. So with that, I'm just going to hit escape to get out of the PowerPoint. We'll come back to this PowerPoint. And what I'm going to show you first is the Liberty Reports Launchpad. Okay, so what happens is if you installed this software, of course, Excel would not be running because our software is an add-in to Excel. But in addition to adding in capability to Excel so that the technology, the Sage 100 Contractor specific technology works, we're going to give you this Launchpad. And the two relevant tabs, the ones that are most relevant to you, will be the Welcome tab and the Sage 100 Contractor tab. Now, you can ignore the other ones. However, we want you to be aware that if you have information in other databases, some Sage 100 Contractor people use the estimating as part of that. Some use Sage's specific, estimating product. We have a Liberty Reports product that works with that. We have Liberty Reports technology that work with CRM systems. So if you have data in different areas and you want to combine them, this could allow you to do that. Or if you just take the time to learn this, then pulling data from other sources, you're using the same tool. So the learning curve will be very, very fast. Now I'm going to spend a moment on this Welcome tab just to explain what you'll see and what you'll have available to you. As you scroll down when you're looking at this, you're going to notice that there's an orientation on Liberty Reports and how to get started. So everything's right here, a description of Liberty Reports desktop, and then we begin giving you step-by-step tutorials. And we want you to be able to learn this technology. We've created it on purpose to make it easy and understandable for people to do so. However, we realize that there is a population of folks who really just don't have the time or the inclination to create their own reports. They'll want a consultant to do that, and you're very fortunate that Cordant has some fantastic consultants working together with our team. We can take care of you and build your specific reports. Sometimes people get designers, though, to add on to those reports or to do ad hoc reports. So these step-by-step tutorials can come in really handy. They're reference guides, all the way down to more advanced topics. If we get over here into the Sage 100 Contractor layout, these are a list of the reports that come standard with this technology. You get all of these reports if you just get the very affordable standard license. Our technology is sold by concurrent use. So a standard license would allow me to generate this report, like an invoice aging, and I could then refresh it as I need to refresh it. So if I come in here, and I've generated some of these, so I'm just going to show you an example. And those are Excel templates that are on the Launchpad. There's nothing in them of and rules on how to create this. So when you begin to use this, the very first thing we're going to ask you to do is create a connection. So here, up here where you see Liberty Reports, that's the Liberty Reports add-in. When you install Liberty Reports, that's what happens. It puts it into Excel. And the first thing you'll do is you'll manage a connection, meaning you're going to create a connection. And what that means is you're going to identify a name and you're going to identify the folder. Like in this case, here's this name and here's this folder. This is where my data is located. So if you have multiple folders of Sage 100 contractor information, there's no problem whatsoever being able to pull data from each folder, or you can even combine data into one report from separate folders, which is pretty common with financials if you have financial information in different folders. So when you select your connection and you refresh, then the instructions that were created when this was designed by a consultant are initiated, and those instructions or the work process you'll see on every information tab. So as you examine the software and you play around, take your time, you're going to see a description of what the report is meant to do, what the requirements are. So it's Liberty Reports for either Sage 100 Contractor, Query, or the Standard or Designer. And then this is the workflow that you will follow to produce these results. And here it talks about the results that it's producing. Now I'm using sample data, okay? So when I could put in a year or period, or year-end period, I should say, an aging date, I could optionally put in a job or or a vendor, and I click this button to refresh the report. Now I want you to know what that is. Again, you'll know really quick if you're not the kind of person who's going to design your own reports, because what I'm about to say will, you know, clicking on a button is no big deal for anybody really, but to be able to know how to put one in place so that you can get the results you want, sometimes more challenging. So all this is Excel. In Excel, there are developer tools, and you could draw a little button, and then you can tell it that certain instructions should happen when that button's selected, and that's called a macro, an Excel macro. We could teach you how to do those things, and or you probably already know. A lot of people do know how to do those. And what we've done is we've assembled certain parameters, just like you would see in a report, and then when you refresh it, you're going to get a result. Now here you're going to see rows of information that meet the criteria that was established. So we select, identified parameters. Based on those parameters, we're limiting the data that's being shown to the information that fits that. So it's pulling it out of your Sage 100 Contractor database. And then we're assembling it in columns. We are putting on a Excel filter control, which is very simple. Anytime in Excel, if you refresh data and then you just select the data, if you're on your home screen, all you have to do is come over here to sort and filter, and you can assign a filter control. This is going to allow you to select only certain vendors, or to sort by, say, name, or really anything. You can just look at amounts that are within a range of certain things. That's how these filters work, and that's just Excel, of course. Liberty Reports has done its job when it pulls the data in. Now, how did it pull the data in? This information's in one or more tables out in Sage. And notice here we're using grouping. So Excel grouping is when you highlight a number of columns, you can click on a group, and it will then allow you to expand those columns or contract them. And you see it a lot if you sort data in Excel. You would, of course, probably already be familiar with it on this side, on the left side, but you can also group on the top. And that's a way to have a lot of information in a report that you might need if you're exploring, what the situation is. But normally, you don't want it there, or if, smaller real estate so that it fits better on a report. And then you have aging columns. And as you see here, when you click here, you're going to see formulas. Now, these formulas are just Excel formulas. They're referencing columns that are most likely hidden between L and N. Notice the letter M is missing. So if you come in here and you unhide columns, you can see what it is that is there, that it's based on. So it's basically, it's going off of a date, and I'm not sure exactly. Excel, it's how it's being visually displayed. There are ways that Excel will interpret information and put those symbols versus just a regular date. But based on the date, it's going to age these out like so. So this is nothing that you could create this exact same thing here. If you built this data, you could identify the source of your information, and then essentially with an aging, it's pretty simple. And there's various ways to go about doing this. But sometimes what you do is you'll create a formula that will say if the date is between here and here, well, the here and here dates, those can just be in the column headings. And I'm going to demonstrate that as an example. I'm going to build a formula from nothing to show you what's behind this, how something like this is created. But there are also more capability in here. We have more macros that you can filter it with no subtotals, or you could say subtotal by vendor. And then what it's doing is the macro is just removing the filter, and then it's doing a sort and subtotal by vendor. And if I switched it to job, the macro is simply doing that by job. So these are, again, it's nothing that you couldn't do yourself. It's just they're pre-set up. Now, when I went into detail on this particular one, I'm not going to go into as much detail on others, but why we used certain examples and sorted and subtotal, what have you, that's based on feedback from consultants, from business partners, from customers on things that they would like to do with Sage 100 Contractor, but are unable to with existing reports, or it's very difficult to do so with, say, Crystal. So learning Crystal is not Excel, right? You'd have to learn a whole different way of interacting with information, and based on how successful you are, you could build something. But even a consultant who knows Crystal, they have reported that they can build with Liberty Reports a report that would take them, a third longer with Crystal. So something that might take 20 hours with Crystal Reports might take them 11 or 12 hours with Liberty Reports. And then again, it's in Excel, so the data is inherently more useful. So there's an example. Went into a lot more detail on that one. I'm going to show you example reports, but then I'm going to show you where you can see information on all the reports that you can do it at any time. I'm going to go just down the line here on a couple of them. So bear with me. I'm going to get to some really nice, cool looking reports here. This is just an AR aging. So again, it has parameters, and based on those parameters, it's doing an aging. Now, I've heard people say, or read communication from customers saying, I'd rather, instead of using the year and the period, use dates. If that works with the information in the database, then there's different approaches for creating parameters. You can go about things differently. And I think that's one of the nicest things about this, is that you can be successful creating what you want by using different approaches. But we've been doing this for a lot of years, for over 18 years. And so we have the best practices of so many people. We probably have of all the ways you could do it, probably the best way, or the way that can produce the results the fastest. So again, I can do this here, or click this button, showing more information. And let me show you a couple other reports, and I'm going to show you where you could save examples of any of these reports. And even without acquiring the software, you could get in there and have a look at it. This is a committed cost report. Again, the information would be based on what it's doing is described here. It's pulling data from a lot of different sources. Often I've seen that the Sage 100 Contractor data is in a lot of different tables. So I've noticed that in Sage 100 Contractor, certain reports, you're only going to see data on one type of cost or another. But we've been doing work with contractors for years, and people tend to want a comprehensive picture of their job. So that a lot of times that's what we're doing, is we're assembling information that otherwise wouldn't have been assembled here. And we're going to have parameters. Maybe when we first created this report, we just had a parameter for you to pick the job. And later on, people said, hey, I want a burden percent for unposted labor that I could put in here and allocate. So could you do that? And then this report was enhanced. But again, if I click here, I can begin to expand out to see where the data comes. So as I do this, I'm going to show you now a little bit more of what's going on behind the reports. But so far, you've just been seeing just the results. So let me show you a little bit more. Up here at the top of the screen where it says that I'm in cell B11, right there, that's the name box. So in addition to showing you what cell you're in, if you click this, it's also where Excel shows you all the defined names. So a defined name is simple, okay? I can just simply, just to show you kind of how that works. If I wanted a from and a through date, let's say this was a from date and this is a through date. A defined name is very simple. You just come up here to this box and you can call it from date, like that. Now that cell is known as B3 on the sheet and also from date. So cells can have defined names like parameters. That's very common. But when you create a query, we will name it something for you, and you can actually name it what you want. So what is a query? A query is a connects Excel. Remember, this is the power behind not pushing into Excel. This is the power behind how all of this is possible. A query connects an area of Excel to dynamic information, either somewhere else in another Excel area or in another database. And in our case, Sage 100 Contractor. So when I say dynamic, it means that that data could change. You could add more transactions, more cost. And as you proceed, you have more and more cost. Well, of course, then if you're going to pull that data, you want to be selective. So that's when you pull it, you can apply conditions, parameters, so that you can limit what gets pulled. So if you click this drop-down box, you can see where our queries are. You see right here, there's a query. And if I click it, it's showing me that the first thing that someone did is they did a query based on the budget. It's showing you the table it came from. And it's pulling for that given job, the phase, the cost code, and the description. They built a query. Then they began to add to the report. They might come over here to the budget, and there's a formula. See, this says DB sum. So what is it? Forget the rest of the stuff. It could be confusing. It won't be here shortly, but it might right now. But a sum is very simple. You're familiar with the sum function if you've used Excel. A sum function, right, is over here, not like an auto sum or a subtotal. I can tell it to go and add something, or a sum if function. I could say go and look on another sheet and add up the amount column if the job column matches this job. I could do that with Excel. That's a sum if. Well, that's exactly what this is, except this function is Sage 100 Contractor specific. So you identify, now this says Sage 100 Contractor, but in reality, what that is a connection. So probably for you would say your company name. So you're saying, I have a folder, it's this company, you know, current year, whatever. And then I have a number of other fields, you know, the things that I'm summing and the conditions that are applied on how I'm summing. Now, those names may or may not make sense to you. If they make sense, it's probably because you've used Sage 100 Contractor for quite a long time. So those probably make sense to you. They're the names that the originator of Sage 100 Contractor was called Master Builder, and Omware came up with their table names and their field names. And that's what you're seeing right here. So that's the safest way to store data when you build a report, is to use the what I call the dictionary name, or most people call the dictionary name. So that's what's happening, is that we can build some functions or look up values or pull data as we evolve a report. That gives you a huge edge, because usually with report designers, which I'm a programmer, I've been doing this for a lot of years, you have to know all the tables that are involved and do it all at once. You know, that's typically what you have to select everything and know that you got the right table. Whereas our software is a very organic process. It's very visual. You grab something and you grab more and more, and you build the report you want until you have this result. So that means I can teach you how to do this, teach you how we've done other things, for example, and you can learn to do this yourself, assuming you have time. You're busy, you have your job. But these kinds of reports are possible. And the other benefit is that once this is done, you know, if someone has a standard license, they don't have to know any of this stuff. All they have to know is that they go into the report and they hit refresh, or they select a parameter and they hit refresh, and something happens and they're happy. Now, let's say I got this report and I wanted to share it with somebody who did not have Liberty reports. Because if I give this right here to someone who does not have Liberty Reports, this will say pound name, because DB sum isn't in their Excel. It's a Liberty Reports function. So if I want to give this information to them, and let's say I want it to preserve the, like right here, that's just an Excel function. See up here? I'm over here in committed costs, and it's just adding columns. That's just an Excel function. So on Liberty Reports, this tab are a number of options, okay? And one of them is a save as values. That's a very useful aspect, and it's a very common question, which is why I'm going after it right now. But if I refresh data, I could click that, and now I could give it to someone, and it's just as if I manually created this, which would have taken me an enormous amount of time. But I didn't. It only took me a minute, you know, to create it, and then I hit save as values. So, or you can, there's other things here, we'll get to that. But so this is an example, another example of a report. I just want to cover a couple other quick ones that are common reports. You know, I'm going to build something from nothing too, but this is an example of a financial. Again, you know, it's got an administration page. It has an information page that will describe to you what it is that we're doing. And to help you understand how to approach building financials, we have training that covers that approach on how to identify the accounts and the columns and so on and so forth. But here we have a result for you. And this is actually quite powerful, because up to this point, I've just been showing you results, but you haven't seen that there's a symbol next to your amounts. It's going to look like a pivot table if you're familiar with that, but it's not. It's much more powerful, and I'll show you that. So I've identified my fiscal year and my period. I hit refresh, and now I get a trial balance, I get a balance sheet, I get an income statement. But what if you were unsure of what that number was made up of right there? It's a number, but it looks wrong, or whatever it is. Right here is a transaction report. There's nothing here, because this is not a pivot table. A pivot table will take a lot longer to refresh, I guarantee you that. And also it's limited to how many tables you can pull from. What this is much more sophisticated. Yet one of the beautiful things about a pivot table in Excel, if you're familiar with that, is if you pull the detail and then you create a summary of it using a pivot table, you can click on an amount and see what makes it up. So that's useful. However, to pull all your data in your Sage 100 Contractor database into Excel so that you could do that would be very time consuming, and that's a major criticism of most Excel-based reports. People say you're duplicating your database in Excel. Why would you do that? How do you know how current the information is? There's lots of objections to that. So it's better to pull what you need when you need it, and to have that be fast. That's what this can do. So if I look at an amount like this, bad debt allowance, and I double click it, what happens is it passes parameters to another sheet and it refreshes. Now the data has to be in that table, and in Sage 100 Contractor, there's different ways to get balances in. So this table, it could have got its balances not from transactional data, you know, from a date range. I'll try to find something that works here. Here you go. So putting in an account, year, you know, from and through period, and refreshing, I see the detail that makes that up. Keep in mind, I have sample data. Your data is going to most likely be evolved from putting in beginning balances and so on and so forth. The point here is that when you see information, you can click on it and get the detail. That's called a drill down. See, it says LR drill down. Well, you may say, look, I've been using Liberty Reports for a little bit, but I don't know how to drill down. Well, we have movies, anytime available content that will show you how to use that drill down function. It's not difficult if you learn it in steps. You know, basically what we teach you is to first build this query. So you're going to see me build something, and it'll have parameters. The thing I'm building will have parameters. So now I'll get a result like this. So if you want to pass those parameters here, all you have to do is use this drill down function. When you click, it passes the parameters that make that number up here. And how to do that best, that's part of the learning. Right? This is an overview, not to teach you everything about the database. Although you're going to be able to think that you could do pretty much anything with this. So as I proceed, Now, with this is a job status report. Just wanted to show you a couple other ones. Again, information here. Here's the report. Now, in this case, it doesn't have a separate parameters page. I'm going to come right here. I click this. I pick my job. I hit refresh. Now, my thoughts about this is that you would save this in a folder, and part of the name of the file would be the job number name. And then you'd put in a different one, and a different one. And the way you'd use it is each time you wanted to come in and refresh it, you'd open up that job-specific workbook. Now, there's lots of reasons why I would probably approach it that way. Mostly it's because I've talked to people like you who've used this technology for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I'm telling you the kinds of things that you will tell yourself. Because I know companies that have gotten to the point where they run their entire business off of 6 or 8 workbooks that are fantastic. Workbooks, they're amazing. And remember, it's not a clunky little thing where I'm running my business in Excel. That is not what this is about. This is using Excel as an analysis tool, and there's nothing better, than Excel for the standpoint of an analysis. So I've got a job status report, and I'm seeing a lot of detail in here. And if you wanted to add more to it, you could add more sheets to it. There's cost detail here. So if I picked a given job and I want to see the cost detail, I just pick it, boom, I see the cost detail. So you have a workbook that you can set up to work the way you want. In this case, they put their totals on the top. It's Excel. You could do it however you want to do it. So there's a lot of reports on the Launchpad. There's one more I want to show you before I go and show you where you could see all of them. So right here is a cash flow. Now, we created this because people in the Sage 300 construction real estate world, who are companies just like you, they're construction companies just exactly like you, we know the kinds of things that they would like ooh and ah about and loved, and this is one of them. So this will show you cash in and out by job. So here's a list of jobs. It's showing me cash in and out. Don't kill the messenger. This is sample data, right? It's whatever Sage took the time to type in. I'd like to see it going up now that they're using Liberty Reports. But anyway, the point is that I see cash in and out here, and I may want to see the detail that makes that up. So if I come here and I say, well, show me what makes that number up, when I click it, it'll hit refresh, and I can expand all of them. See this 1, 2, 3. If you click this, it expands all of them. So you're seeing right here the payments received, the invoices paid, other costs, all right here. So it pulled that real time when I clicked on that amount. It pulled it, and all of this data is bounded by this year and period. Okay, so there are rules about how these are created. So let's say someone was going to create a report for you. Well, of course, the first step is to identify the rules of that report that is going to come from you. What do you want to see? Where's the data coming from? What parameters? What are the fonts? Now, we're of course going to ask you questions like, well, wouldn't you want to see the detail behind this, and the best practices of other people? That way, the reports you're going to get are, because you're using very experienced people, you're going to benefit from how other people are using this kind of technology. Otherwise, you're limited to what occurs to you, and we want to inspire you. That's where all these reports are coming from, is being inspired by other folks. Okay, so before I show you how to create something from nothing, I want to show you this. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to take you out to the WWN Software website, so www.event1software.com. So that's the company my co-founding partner and I founded in 1998. We were consultants before that. And if you come here, there's a lot of content here. The knowledge base down here is very useful. See on the bottom here where it says knowledge base? We have a lot of information there with multimedia content and what have you. I'm not going to go into that now, but that is going to be a very useful area. What I want you to do is draw your attention up here to where it says products. Now, if I click Liberty Reports, I'm just going to go all the way through to this page. You're going to see information about Liberty Reports, all the different products. And if you scroll down, you'll see features. And if you keep going down, you get to the area that talks about the licensing, the standard and the designer license. So you can satisfy yourself on this technology. There's a lot of information on our website, event1software.com. I'm right here on Liberty Reports. And right here, system requirements. Now, I will tell you right now that this technology currently still requires Excel or Microsoft Office that's 32-bit. Now, don't become alarmed. A lot of people install Office in 64-bit. If I got everybody together, including Microsoft representatives, and asked everybody, including IT people, what's the benefit of 64-bit? To me, I would tell you the main benefit is it's the thing that is distributed. It's the default. But what the real reason is to display very large files. And I'm talking a lot larger than what I've ever seen anybody use information in Excel of anybody I've implemented, and I've implemented multi-billion-dollar companies. 64-bit Excel really doesn't give a lot yet, okay? It's Microsoft's moving forward with whatever. There could be lots of reasons, I won't go into it. But 32-bit, a lot of technology was created that utilizes it, including drivers and things that other developers utilize. So 32-bit technology, there's a lot of dependencies of tools and things in order to innovate technology, and they're not compatible with 64-bit on purpose, Microsoft. I mean, anyway, there could be a discussion on why it's not. You know, Microsoft used to try to always be backwards compatible, but different people create technology that isn't backwards compatible for whatever their reasons are. Anyway, doesn't matter. When you install Microsoft, it comes with both 32-bit and 64-bit, both. Okay, I'm just telling you that right now. So if your IT gives you any grief, it's not that difficult to have you be on 32-bit. Okay, they just have to do it, and then this technology will work great. And frankly, 32-bit, there's a lot of technology that still requires that. So that would be my recommendation if I was an IT person for anyone. Anyway, so there's other system requirements, but like I say, it's backwards compatible for prior versions of Sage 100 Contractor. So whatever our current version is that we're distributing, it'll work with your, most likely. I mean, unless you're on a really, really old version of Sage 100 Contractor. And there's all sorts of things like buy now will get you pricing and things like that. But what I want to do here is on this page, I'm going to simulate now when I just came in, when I just typed in Event1 Software. If I come over here to products and I go to Liberty Reports, look here, it says reports included with. So I click that. Well, look at this. Here's a list of all of those reports. They're all right here. Okay. So let's say I wanted to see this job cost forecast by cost code. It describes it. I click here, taking me to a sheet, and if I click this, it shows me an image of what that report will look like if I refreshed it. You know, essentially I'm picking my job, and I can identify a period and a cutoff date, and I could pick the forecast method like % complete or units to go or cost at completion, whatever it is. And then this workbook refreshes. And really what you do with this, now notice it will have more than just one type of cost. You'll have all your costs on here, labor, material, equipment, salary, everything. So if I save this report, most people will save it in a forecast folder, you know, and then below it, maybe they have a project manager folder, and then all the project manager's jobs are in there. And then you just refresh that job. And when you do it, you know, you'll want to have your history saved. So you'll have all your prior months most likely in the workbook, and then you'll have your current month that you got your forecast, and they can put in their cost to complete or whatever and share that with you. Now, of course, we don't write back to Sage 100 Contractor yet. If you want that data in there to back up your WIP, you'll have to take it, but we are automating the information capture from the field using this kind of technology. So that's an example, very useful. And if you click right here, remember I told you when I was in that workbook where you could click a button and save as values, and that you'll have a copy. You'll have your original, but you also have a copy that's just Excel. Well, that's what you're going to get here. If you click this, you're going to get a save as values. So you'll see the entire workbook based on sample data, but it's still very useful. So just to point out, all of your reports are visible here. You can look at all of them, save a copy of each one and examine it, or like I said earlier, you could also get a copy of the software and use it. We'll get you a copy to be able to use it for free. I wanted to create something from nothing. Well, let's just do that. Now, I could very simply do something like what you saw there. I could do, I think it's like 186, something like that. I could put in a job number. I could use data validation to list all my jobs and let you pick only a job that's valid. You know, there's lots of approaches. But what I want to do is I'm going to come up to Liberty Reports and I'm going to click query, this query, because what I want to do is I want to grab data, you know, from it. Maybe before that, let's do this. Let me say right here, I want to put the job name. Okay, the job name's out there in Sage 100 Contractor. So if I click the function wizard, it says, okay, well, what you know, type of a database, and I'm using Sage 100 Contractor. And it says the connection's already established because I've been using it. Now, there's lots of different functions. I can find information, which is actually our most powerful function. It's really, I mean, you could say, based on these conditions, go out and find the first, second, third, or the last occurrence of something. And right now, off the top of your head, that probably doesn't mean anything, but as you apply it to building dashboards and stuff, it becomes very powerful. There's lookup, find, count, average, max, min, you know, various different things. Well, what I want to do is I want to look up the job's name based on the number, okay? So I'm going to hit next, and whatever number happens to be in there, I want it to report the name there. So it's putting me right here. Here's the job table, okay? I hit next. There's the job name. Here's all the stuff I could pull, but I'm just want one thing right now. So I could click, and grab a whole bunch of stuff. Hit next, and then it's, of course, it doesn't know what job. It's going to say, well, what job? Now, I could change this to a literal value, and I could put in 186, and it would pull the value for 186. So see, if you click this, it'll show you every job you have in your database, because that's the column I picked. But I don't want that, because that's static. That would be like QuickBooks. I don't want that. I wanted it to be able to be interactive. So I'm going to say, you know, cell reference, and then I can either type in B3, or I could click this button here. I'll just type in, you know, $B, $3. Now that's a best practice right there. You may know what the dollar signs are. That's a fixed cell reference. So a dollar sign in front of the first letter is you're fixing the column, and under the second component of the number, you're fixing the row. And I'm fixing both because that's where the job is right there. I hit next, and now I have a result. Now, I could have told it to put the caption in or not. Like, I didn't give it a choice, but one of the prompts is whether you want the caption to be added or not. So I could, you know, delete that row if I want. And so I've got it in there. So that if it's another job, like I think 201 is a job. See here how it changed? It looks magical, but it's this function. This, you know, it's like a VLOOKUP, except it's looking up in the database. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I could pull anything from any other tables for my headers and footers, but right here, let's say I want to start a query. So what do I want? Let's just say I want cost. So I come down here and I grab the cost table. That's the name inside of right here in the internal names here. That's the name inside of Sage 100 Contractor. When we created our technology, we tried to give the fields more intuitive names. So on the left, you're going to see, we're trying to show you that job cost information is in this table. But if you've already know the table names, you can go off of that. Now look, we're giving you a preview, so you have an idea that you've got the right table. So I'm going to hit next. And now I can say, all right, well, what do I want? I don't need the job because it's right up there. I want the description, the date, the period, maybe where it came from. I want the cost code, the vendor, you know, the employee, you know, whatever it is. If it's an employee, I want hours, cost, billing amount. I grab a whole bunch of data. These are the columns I want. I hit next. Now, if I don't apply a condition, remember, I'm attached to all your costs. So if you told someone to go and get all your costs, if you don't give them anything else, they're going to come back with all your costs. I don't want all of it. So I'm going to add a condition that the job on that table out there equals that cell right there. So I'm gonna, now again, here I'm gonna click this, click that, hit enter. I could have just typed in $B $3, and it shows you what the current value is in that, or you could put a value in there. And then I hit OK. And so it's showing me that based on that condition, here that there's information that matches. So I'm gonna hit next. I don't want to summarize this. I'm not going to sort it, but I am going to call it, it's query a PM job cost, okay? But I'm going to say, you know, single job or something like that. Meaning, if I had a workbook that had hyperlinks, like I've seen people have an information page in Excel, you can link one cell to another with something called a hyperlink. It's actually very, very simple. And it's how people set up dashboards. And then you could click on it, it would jump to whatever report you want. It's really cool. I did not come up with that. I observed people like you using it and thought, wow, that's quite nice. So I could name this and it'll help me know, you know, one report versus another. Okay, and so upper left-hand corner is D6, but I could have changed it. I'm just gonna hit finish and I have a result. Now, if I want to do a pivot table or whatever else I can move grid lines. There you go. You save this and you come in and you can change the job and hit refresh. You can refresh it by right-clicking and hitting refresh right here. That will refresh just this query. I hit the right mouse button. I could or just hit that refresh right there. And you've seen what we do. We put little buttons so that the person using it doesn't even have to know how to refresh. It's very visual. Well, that's pretty simple. Anyone could do that. Again, if you don't believe me about this, like now 201, notice if I change it, the data did not change yet. I can right click and hit refresh and the data will change. Notice it just changed. It says 201 right there. But let's say you wanted it to change automatically, refresh automatically. You can do that with Excel. It's not Liberty Reports. You just right click, you go to parameters, which is what that is, and you tell it when that value changes, because I only just have one parameter, to refresh automatically. So if I come back to 186, boom, very quick and easy. So it's really simple to get going. But I'm going to show you something, the real reason why you would want this technology. I mean, that's the real reason, but this is even better. I'm going to build something that usually salespeople avoid showing you anything that's really difficult because in reality, their software is not easy to use. Well, I'm not worried. Our software is very easy to use. So let's just build something more difficult. Okay, so I'm going to do a query and I'm going to base it off the same thing because you already saw me do that. But what I want is I only want costs related to vendors. And I want it for a range of dates. I want to put in a range of dates and have, in fact, and I want one row. I want one row for job, cost code, vendor. And then I want the billings and the amount added up in case there's multiple invoices. I want a summary report, right? How easy is something like that to do? Because normally you have to go through a bunch of steps or insert on that other one, you have to put in a pivot table or something. I want to produce a better, more powerful result. And so to do this, I'm going to have to pull from multiple tables. It's going to be fantastic. Let's just do this. Okay, so this is where I want to start. And okay, so what columns? I want the job. I want to base it on date, but I don't want to display date. So I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to grab cost code. I'm going to grab vendor. And then I'm going to come down here and I want billing amount and I want cost. All right, well, hold it. See, vendor's blank. Why is vendor blank? Well, you probably know, because I have payroll in there or whatever else. I have non-vendor related costs. Well, I don't want that in there. So there's some work I have to do. I don't want just number, job number, cost code. There are a lot of people who wouldn't even know what that is. So how do I add the job name? Well, up here, you see we're moving through the steps of creating a report. This little icon in the middle allows me to show you every table that's related to the table that I'm running my report on. So you click this. This is new. This is within the last year. This is the pinnacle of our reporting here. And our software is already voted easiest to use, and now it just got easier. So when I click this, we're showing you every table that's related. Well, notice there's a couple of things like AP. Why is that at the top? Because it starts with the letter A. You could sort it by other, names here. And you can also, in the find, type in what you want. But I'm going to do it more manual so you can see more of the tables. So the vendor, I know I need that. The vendor's name is on the vendor table. So I'm picked that table. Okay, I just double click it. Now it showed me all the columns on the vendor table. Now vendor number is on the job cost table, but the name isn't. The name is on the vendor table. Okay, so I'm going to click that. It added it right there. Now, yeah, it's blank because that vendor's blank, but stay tuned. It'll work. Okay, so now I want to see more related tables. I want to see like the job related tables. So I'm going to come down here. Now we put them under PM, you know, for project management, and you've got there's job cost. Oh, here's a job table. See it right there? That's the name Omware gave it. I do not know, like account record. I think that's, I've tried to think of why they came up with their names, but anyway, as a programmer, who knows? I'm sure people are out there questioning stuff I've written, which is all beautiful and perfect. I just want you to know. Okay, so if I come in here and I click job, now here's a list. Now it says, well, hold a second here. You have two tables on this report, vendor and job. And the job number, there's job numbers on both. Which one? And I say, well, go off the job cost table, right? And I could do my own relationship, but don't do this option. There are times, this is like a more advanced thing. I don't want to confuse you, so just stick with this stuff up here. So I'm going to say based on this table, and then I want the name. I just click it, and it added it. Now, if you are more advanced and you know what SQL is, we're creating SQL right now. This is a front end that creates structured query language. We have to, because that's the language of reporting. But most people don't have to know that. They just have to reason out what they want. So that's one of the reasons we've won so many awards with this technology, is you can be successful working with what you know. Plus, of course, very visual. So the job is over here. I don't want it over there, right? I want it right here. So I click here and I move it over. Now, if you didn't do that, if you saved all this and got it out there, because we saved the data a certain way in Excel, you could move your columns around out there if you needed, and it would stick. But it's easier here, better here. Now I just want one more table, the cost code. That's why we want to, if we get a chance to teach you, you're going to be able to learn how to do this. And then I want the PM cost code. I just happen to know. You may know. I don't know. There's the cost code table. See it? I click it. There's the description. It's down here, but I want it over here next to cost code. I just clicked, held down my mouse, and moved it over. There's my columns. So I got my columns the way I want. I got all the data, but I still got this vendor. Plus, remember, no date range. So let me, now don't worry, because the next tab is conditions. So it says conditions. So I'm going to hit add. And the first thing is, I want it so that the vendor is not equal to blank. See, there's vendor field. Now here's examples of different vendor numbers right here. Okay, but you don't have to know that right now. Over here is the comparison right here in the middle. And I want the vendor, right, to be not equal to blank. If the vendor is not equal to blank, that means that this transaction is vendor related. So vendor is not equal to, so I'm going to change this from cell reference to literal value. And we default to what a blank is. So vendor is not equal to blank. I hit OK. And now I've got that condition. Look down here. See, now the vendor that is blank is gone. And this is the first non-blank one. That's good. We're getting there. We're almost done with the report. So I'm going to add a condition. And I'm going to say that the date is greater than or equal to, and in this case, I don't want it to be a fixed date because I want to be able to change it. So I said cell reference, and I'm going to click this button, and I'm going to say that the from date is right there. Now, right here, I have a problem because so far I've told it the report is going to start in A1, but I'm going to put my from and through dates down here. So hopefully Liberty Reports will take care of me, and it does. Don't worry. We're going to help let you put where the upper left-hand corner of the report is. So this is where I'm going to put my from date, and then it's asking me for a value, and it's showing you a list of values. And it did not do this before, and this is so cool because I couldn't remember what dates to put in when I did a demonstration. So if I put in 1, or let's say 4 or 5-1, I'll say 5/1/2015. That'll work. Or 2011, sorry. That's probably what I historically did. Another data set I have is 2015. Anyway, you're going to put in today's date, so it's not going to be that big of a deal, but you'll still see values. I've used the technology for years, and they keep making it, they meaning my partners, keep making it better and better. Okay, so I'm going to add another condition that the date is less than or equal to, and then I'm going to say that is going to go right here. It is clicked right there. I hit OK, and then I'll say 5/31. Now, I'll tell you a common mistake that people make is they don't change this operator. They'll leave it at like equal or something. Well, if you do this, just look right here. It'll say date equal to this and date equal to that. Of course, you're going to get no data. This will be blank down here because the date can't be equal to two things. So that's a common thing until people think about it and they go, oh, of course I have to tell it. If you say it out loud, you know, I want the date to be greater than this and less than equal, you'll be successful here. So this is the conditions I want. I'm good to go. However, you know, and in this case, I have the data with all the detail, okay? So this has got all the data I already had, from and through. I skipped steps, sorry. Well, you will make mistakes too, I just want you to know. Here, I could edit that, but that's going to be a more advanced topic of editing something you've already created. I will tell you that as you're beginning to learn this and you make a mistake like that, I would say come up here and select your query and then just delete it, because I wasn't done, okay? And so if I shift the cells over, now these from and through dates are back over here, okay? So I'm in fact, let's just get it back to the exact way I had it. This is where I had it, and my cursor's up there, okay? So bear with me. I made a mistake, and there was more tabs, and I skipped over them. I didn't tell it what to move the upper left-hand corner of the report, and I wanted to do one other thing too. So obviously you'd look at that and go, well, that's not right. Okay, so let's just do this real quick, and without me talking, I'll be faster. Okay. I'm just going to trace over the steps. Maybe this is good. Seeing it twice, it'll cement in your head. It's not difficult, these steps, right? So you'll know the next thing I have to do is I come back here. I'm going to choose more columns of data. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab off the cost related tables. It doesn't really matter what order, right? And if you don't want to put the descriptions on there, don't. I'm going to, because I think that it makes the report easier to understand by more people. So and I'm doing it this way because when you're doing it, you're not going to just type in what you're looking for here initially. Later you will. You won't go looking like this. You'll just type in what you want and it'll find it for you. The reason they asked me that is I already added the vendor table and the cost code table, and I already had the cost table. Well, the same field is on multiple tables, so the software doesn't know where you want to make that connection. And the rule is start with the table that has the data you want. And then, by the way, if you have already a crystal report based on a report you want, that's like a recipe to build your report. So you've got the tables identified there. But you could just reason it out as well. So I got name and so on and so forth. So I'm going to hit next, apply condition. Vendor not equal to. Remember, the comparison is what people sometimes mess up. Literal value is blank. Now see, this is working. I'm going to add a condition at the date greater than or equal to. Change it from literal value. That's a common thing that people mess up here. If you're going from a literal value to like a cell reference. I click here, click there. I'm not sure if I don't know what this 12 a.m. thing is going to do to it. You can format your time. I don't know if Sage 100 Contractor, how it would do that. I'm actually kind of glad I made this mistake. So you got greater than that, add another condition. You can tell it when you build a date or something how to build it, how to save it. So you could tell it to save it in a way that doesn't have all that extra information, like date and time. And probably when you built those two cells, you can format them, and format the date. And even if you're not going to build your own reports, just be aware of what's possible. So I've got these done, but what I didn't do is I didn't summarize. And so I want to have one row. Now I don't want to, if you see this sum symbol, it means it's going to add it up. I don't want to add up my job numbers. It's doing this because these are numeric fields. But I took off so it didn't add up my numbers. These are not numbers to be added, they're the actual job, But cost and billing is what I want to add. So now I'm going to have one row for job, cost code, vendor combination, regardless of how many invoices. If I have invoice and retainage or multiple invoices, I'll just have one row. It's going to be summarized. So now if I hit next, I can choose a sort order. And I do recommend, if you don't know how the data is stored, you can ask the consultant. But if you don't know, then sort it so that, just think about it. If you had a stack of paper and you had a job and there was a vendor and for a cost code, and then you had another cost code for that same vendor, but further down, you have the original cost code and vendor, another one, data is not organized in a way you could add it. You're going to get weird results. You don't want to do that. So I'm going to add a condition and I'm going to sort, based on job. And you want to always pull from the same table. That's the job cost table. So that by job, by cost code, I might want to do it by job, by vendor cost code, just depends on what I want to do. But job, I'm changing this to the job cost table again. And so I've sorted by job, cost code, and vendor. And that's good. I don't have to sort it by amount. Okay, so I know it's going to be correct here. And then the last screen will tell me something like, the name of the report. So I will call this, and I'm going to abbreviate it, like job cost. I'm going to say it's going to be a job cost code vendor summary, right? Because I already created another report that wasn't a summary. So, call it what it is. And now I'm going to tell it to put the upper left corner of the report here. That way it doesn't wipe out the dates, and now when I hit finish, ta-da, now I have it. Sorry, I did it twice, but you know what? You probably understand it better because I talk so fast. Okay, so to come back, I think I need to be wrapping this up. I think we need to be, I tend to, Chris, I apologize. I tend to kind of blow away these things because there's so much fantastic stuff to show. I get so excited. But if you're going to build your own financials, we already have one, but if you're going to build your own, we have suggestions on how to go about doing that. Start with a template, decide on your parameters, whether it's going to be year and period or date or what have you. Think about where your amounts are going to be placed, and we even have knowledge base articles. Remember I told you when I went to the website that the knowledge base has a lot of content? We have so much useful things there to help guide you in making this technology yours. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who use this in the Sage 100 Contractor world, and thousands of people who use our technology across different ERPs. So we know a lot about how to go about doing this. These are topics that you might want to, get involved with. You're doing financials, really any kind of reporting. But when we talk about the value proposition, it's not just being able to get a report created that isn't easy to create or isn't possible, say with Crystal or Sage's report writer. There are reasons why this technology is superior regardless. You're going to be able to increase your ability to report simply because Excel has that ability. And think about if you had information where you want to add a column, where you're doing your own formula, or you just want to type an amount or notes. Excel does that. So it's a more interactive experience, and it can be printed, and it's published quality. So the interactive aspect of a report can't be minimized at all. We're leveraging a skill set you have to one degree or another. If you want to learn more about Excel, you have a large population of people that provide that. So your tool that this is based on, you have a lot of ability to get expertise on it. And I've heard people talking about cloud-based things like Google Docs and what have you. There just isn't the amount of content like add-ins created in those environments yet because the technology doesn't support add-ins to the extent that your regular Excel does. So that's the good news, that you should be able to continue to use it. Doing so, you accomplish more in less amount of time, which is highly useful. These are the types of licenses. It's based on concurrent use. So if I'm refreshing a report and I'm using a standard license, then someone else can't. But if I save it and close that workbook, then I release my concurrency. So talk to your salesperson that you can guide you through what licenses are best for you and how many you need. You know, here you have the standard versus designer. I used the standard license until the end where I created those two things. That was a designer. A designer includes the standard license capability, by the way. So there's your prices. And on top of this, there is software updates. So that's 25% of the product price is the cost of support, technical support, and software updates. And the technical support is unlimited, but it's technical in nature. They're not going to guide you in building a report, and you wouldn't want them to. They're not accountants. They're not experts at Sage 100 Contractor. They're experts at Liberty Reports. But that's technical support. You have consultants with Accordant, and they are fantastic. So between the two of us as a team, we can accommodate your needs. So this is what we suggest are the next steps: determining the licenses you might need, deciding maybe reports that to start with or ones on the launch pad, and then have your sales representative create a proposal for you so you get an idea, get a budget going. Accordant provides services, can draw upon us as well. There are project assessment meetings to look at something you may want created or something that maybe that we already have in the Launchpad you want customized. Sometimes a report is pretty significant. Even with Sage 100 Contractor, people have said that customers are less sophisticated. I have not seen that. I've seen very sophisticated people using Sage 100 Contractor, and sometimes the scope takes more. You know, think about it. It's like an engineering and architectural study, blueprints. You need a plan, and there's a cost associated with it. So, but there may not be. It could be a simple report. There's one-on-one consulting, guidance. There's training. A lot available to you. That's the email address to email if you want to know more about how to get training. This is who you contact if you want more on the product, the pricing. We'll follow up with a PowerPoint, this PowerPoint and information. But here's all the information. And Krista, I've wrapped it up. I'm only a few minutes late. I looked down, and I didn't blow it away as badly. You're such a patient partner for me.
Okay, we have a question here. Can you show some estimating reports that it includes?
Estimating reports. Oh, sure, everybody. Now, I just showed them how to get the reports they want. So we give them the software. They could create your own estimating reports. But yes, I have been asked to do that. So I can't. Now, keep in mind, I am not, it may look like I'm a Sage 100 Contractor subject matter expert. I'm not. I know enough because I've demonstrated this technology, and I've shown people. You have folks in Accordant who are and would probably be better at demonstrating the creation of reports. But I kind of have an idea because I have actually created one for someone. So if I come in here to Excel, there you see the reports that come with the software. They're right here. Okay, so if a report isn't on this list and you think a lot of people would benefit from it, then communicate that to your court representative, and that will come to us, and that's how this list is expanded. Okay, but we know that a business partner can create the reports for their customers using this tool, and they can create templates. Look, this is the folder you'd put it in. Well, if you had my system, when you install the reports, it'll identify, when you install it, where the templates are. So if you add new templates, you could just add them here and they'll appear right there. But if I come in here and I come over here and I do livery reports and I do a query, pick my folder. So this is where I'm not as clear. I think estimates have their own area right there. So I don't know if you can selectively take someone off, but I kind of need them to tell me what they want to pull, because I've had different people ask me different things. So I'm not an expert at where your data is and from estimating. I don't think you want assemblies, and again, I don't know where or even what data is in the sample database. But there's takeoff information. There's export. That's a takeoff line. So I'm assuming that is going to be one of the key aspects of a report. But what you need to know is what is your fundamental, what is the driving table, right? So for cost, it's that cost table I was working at. For an estimate, it may be this, maybe something else, but you're just going to go through here and pick what it is that you want. I'm going to grab a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. And then now I got the columns. I can say condition. So I can add a condition and say, there's a list of jobs. So I'll say job equals a cell reference. And then I can tell it that the job is right there. Okay. So job equals that cell reference. And then I'll put in job 186. And then you'd have to know more about, you would have grabbed all the columns like I just did if you're going to summarize it by like part number or bid item or whatever it is. You'd only pick the columns that are non-numeric, that are unique for what you want to summarize by. Or just pull it all in and then use a pivot table. I mean, if that's what you want to do. And so now you can tell it, what the name of the report is. And there may be different estimating related reports. And then remember, there's the parameter, right? So if you go to parameters, you can tell it to refresh, so that if I said job 201, so that's estimating information, but I don't know what kind of estimating reports that you would like to create. So it starts with that, So what this is not is oh, look, we've created every report that anyone could ever want. Have a look at all these wonderful reports, and you're just going through a report menu. That's not what this, that would be like going to a fish market. Look at all the fish. We could do that, right? Someone could fish for you and bring you whatever you want, but we can also teach you so that you can catch whatever it is that you want. It just depends on how you want to move forward, which is why on the last part of the PowerPoint it said, decide how you want to use this technology, and then we can put the plan together, for you. So hopefully I gave them an example. Maybe I would recommend, if they want to play around more with that, they get the evaluation of Liberty reports, which you can do so by going through Cheryl. She can accommodate you on that.
Yes, Cheryl can handle any other questions. So. Okay, so that's all the time we have for today, and that's all the questions. So if you have any other follow-ups, please reach out to Cheryl after the webinar. We want to thank everyone for attending today. And again, an email of the recording will be sent out to everyone later today. Thanks again, James.